right, folks, this is Rick Mackey from GetEsoteric.com, and I was just bringing together some of the folks from the disclosure community to kind of have a chat on some of the recent events and some of their personal stories and things that they would like to discuss. So we were just talking about dreams and things like that, so we can start off with that story with our friend Stephen here.
Hi. Okay. So yes, I was. So we were talking about Anshar and dreams, and so I was about to talk about an Anshar dream that I had before I knew about the Anshar. Something very much like the Anshar, but this was back in 2016, and then it occurred to me that it seems to be about the time we're in now. Okay, so in the dream, I was like in a closed-in outdoor area, and making chalk drawings on a pavement, right? And so I'm down on my knees and I'm making chalk drawings. So I look up. I'm on my knees. I look up, and there are probably like 6 to 8 people in robes, and they're like very tall, like 8 feet tall, and beautiful, and very kind of Nordic looking. And they sort of what would you call it? Like telepathically communicated to me that they were there and they were aware of me.
Wow. Is everybody wearing a headset? Because I'm getting some feedback here.
But loving at the same time. And no smiling or anything like that. But it just occurred to me, right now, everybody's making chalk drawings. Like outside of our building, there's chalk drawings all over the sidewalks and all over the pavement. So,
excuse me, just one sec. I gotta say, there's a lot of feedback coming back. Can others who are not talking put themselves on?
There's a huge echo.
Yeah, there's.
So you guys need to mute your lines if you're not talking.
Or put a headset on so you don't get the feedback loop. You know.
Was any of that understandable?
No.
Part of it was.
Take 3.
So who's everyone's wearing a headset, right? Everyone's wearing a headset?
I'm wearing a headset.
Okay.
No, I don't have a headset, sorry.
Oh, that's probably why, yeah. You kind of have to do that when you're in the Zoom. If not, you can put it on mute when you're not talking. It should be okay.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll put it on mute when I'm not talking.
Yeah. All right. Let's try that again.
Take 3.
Yeah, he's got his headset there. Yeah, because what happens, you end up with a feedback loop, and it just sort of messes up the whole.
Yeah, because I didn't hear anything he said. But I didn't want to be rude and interrupt
There you go.
him. I'm like, just let him do his thing.
It was extremely distracting to me too, but
Sounds
I
great.
thought, well,
Sounds great, right? Okay, we're good.
okay.
That's better.
There's absolutely no feedback on my end.
Right.
All right. Amazing.
Okay. So are we doing the story now?
We're doing the story. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, yes. So we were talking about dreams and the Anshar, and David had a dream with the Anshar, and then I remembered, I had a dream about the Anshar years ago, before I knew about the Anshar, or something very much like the Anshar. And then it occurred to me that there were synchronicities, like kind of pointing to this particular time. So in this dream, I was on my knees and making a chalk drawing, okay, in like a closed-in outdoor area with a patio, okay. And I looked up, and there were 6 to 8 foot tall people, beautiful people, very Nordic looking, in white robes, and they were looking down at me and sort of telepathically telling me that they're there and they're aware of me. Okay, and I felt very serious but loving at the same time. And then I woke up. But then it occurred to me that right now, just last week, I was making chalk drawings on the sidewalk, and everybody's doing that. It's kind of a thing people are doing right now, and the whole patio area outside of our building happens to be filled with chalk drawing. So that just kind of pinged me and made me think, wow, maybe that is about exactly this time, like a little prophetic read. So
yeah, it could be. I mean, I think everything like that is sort of linked in some way, at the higher level. And a lot of the times, you'll have a dream about something, and it might be, a little bit off from what actually happens, but there's a connection because you can also feel it. It's not just a thing that you remember. You actually feel like you're connected to that idea.
Sure.
And that's pretty cool. So then Dennis had a story too, a similar story. He was, David.
Yeah, I just check with you first. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you good. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So I turned my volume down, which is good.
Yeah.
I was saying, we were talking about my novel earlier. So eight years ago, I started writing a novel. I wrote it for 7 years, and then I published it last year. And it's a science fiction, spiritual action adventure novel. Now, I felt like I was making things up, but I also felt like the information was being channeled through to me. So anyway, I published a novel. Next thing, I started hearing about the secret space program. So I started doing some research into the secret space program, only to discover that much of the technology that I had supposedly made up is actually real technology that supposedly does already exist. I'd said it 200 years in the future, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm being a bit too ambitious that we'll have that 200 years in the future. But under the secret space program, they claim that we already have it. So there you go. So from there, I got into various other things, including the Law of One. And I found a lot of the Law of One teachings were also in what I'd written. And then one day I had this dream, would have been probably about 6 months ago. In the dream, I was with 3 other people. There was 4 of us in total, and we were trekking through the Antarctic. And we'd come from the Australian Antarctic Station, and we were on a exploratory mission. And we discovered this temple. And the temple sitting in the middle of a plain of just snow everywhere. Anyway, we walked into the temple, and when we walked inside, part of it was open, but everything was different. It was like a warm climate, it was like lovely blue sky, really warm sun, and we're standing there, and I remember saying, well, I wonder where the people are who built this thing, why would they build it in the middle of nowhere? Next thing, these people in robes came out, and I believe there was 3 of them, and they started talking to us. They were about the same height as us. They were human, clearly human, but there was differences in their features. And they were saying that they live here, and that this is just the tip of, or the top of a big complex that they had underground, and they were saying that they could control the climate, and I believe they were the Anshar, which Steve was talking about. And then they were saying to me, well, we have a place here for you. And I said, well, I can't stay here. I've got to go back to the Antarctic Station. And they said, well, in the future, there will be a place coming up for you, and we'll be reserving it for you. And anyway, as soon as we started to ask them more questions, they said, oh, you've got to leave. There's a big snowstorm coming. So they said, if you leave right now, you should get back just in time before the snowstorm starts. So we went, and then I woke up.
Wow.
So pretty amazing stuff.
That's incredible. So yeah, had you been already researching this kind of stuff really deeply before you had this dream, or is it sort of like just...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, to be fair, I had got into it because when I started to do the research into the secret space program, I was reading all Michael Saller's books. I was watching all Corey Good stuff, David Wilcock. That's when I really got into the Disclosure Ascension community. This is what brought me into it. And anyway, I thought to myself, well, what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to write a second novel, which I have actually started. I was going to call it something like the SSP Chronicles. So I'm not sure on the final title yet, but I'm writing a contemporary novel. I actually was going to set it in the year 2020 and making good progress. I'm up to chapter 6, and it's describing a young lad. In the prologue, it's got this young boy, and he's basically identified as an intuitive empath, and he gets taken into the MyLab program, and he ends up going into the secret space program, and then the adventure goes on from there. I won't say any more about it, but I was making good progress, and then suddenly the coronavirus came along, and then everything else that's associated with it, and all the other drama that's going on in the background. And so what's happened is I found myself to be a participant in a great big science fiction story. Well, it's not a science fiction story.
Yeah.
It's a real life action adventure story, and that we are all characters in. And so what's happened is I've ground to a halt in my writing, because what's going on at the moment, I actually spend most of my day doing research into various theories behind the coronavirus, everything else that's going on in the world. And so my actual writing of a science fiction story is ground to a halt, because literally truth is greater than fiction. I think I've got it on the back of my T-shirt here, the edge of one.
Oh yeah, there you go. And it's true. It's so true. I mean, if you think about the best thing you could possibly think of, or anything that you've seen in Hollywood, or any book that was ever written, you couldn't come up with any of this, not to this degree of detail that the SSP insiders talk about. Especially Corey, where he's really just sort of laid it all out there.
And the way it just all interlocks and makes perfect sense. You know? And then you learn about Q. It makes perfect sense and dovetails beautifully and perfectly with Q. Everything just fits right together.
Yeah, and that kind of gets me into an area of conversation where it's a little bit shaky to talk about, but it's like, I don't see how, if you follow Corey from the beginning, or you follow David from the beginning, that you could question anything to do with their motives. Because I'll tell you what, I'm also an intuitive empath, and I know truth when I see truth. I know, when someone's lying. I could tell a person's personality from the first time I meet them, just from a few words that come out of their mouth. I can usually tell. Not always right, but most of the time I'm pretty close. So
I can tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Working with Corey, he is a man of integrity, and he operates. Love is his policy.
Yeah, it's his religion.
Yes, yeah, and it's the way he does.
Corey. I think he's great.
Business. Yeah.
Yeah, he is a fantastic person. I mean, I've watched.
He even cares for the people that.
Oh yeah.
That
are going after
that. Yes, he does.
Yeah. Because he had made friends with those people. We don't have to name names or anything like that. Or just say that there is some people out there that have maybe have their own motives, maybe have their own ideas of how business relationships should be. But ultimately, if you're an owner of proprietary technology or anything that's copyright material, whatever, you have full reign over how you implement it and how you work with people. And I don't see why people have a problem with this whole thing about monetization, because these people have to live too. We all have to live in this system. Right. And guess what? They're not living in mansions and driving Lamborghinis. Okay, they're just on the same level as anybody else. as far as that goes. They're not getting rich off of this, you know. Even if they did, even if they eventually do, you know, it would be an earned effort, you know.
Yeah.
And think about
they've definitely worked for it.
Think of all the free material that David's given away since 1990. I've been following him since like 96 or whenever he first got on.
Wow.
It might have even been earlier than that. You know, I think it was 92 when the internet started. He was like first guy on there, you know. So I've been following him for a long, long time, and I've seen nothing but a man who was curious about all things and very highly intelligent, interested in science, interested in mathematics, interested in all of these things. But then when you get into the truth of science, you also get into the truth of everything else, right? You start to kind of branch off into all these other areas where all of a sudden now you're going down all these different rabbit holes of truth. You want to know about the connection between industry and money and religion and everything, you know, the military-industrial complex. And then the hole just keeps getting deeper and deeper, you know? And he, for years, didn't charge anything for any of his work, you know? Or he would have programs here and there that would be enough to keep him, you know, sort of with his head above water. But he lived very humbly for a very, very long time. And I respect that, you know.
Yeah, well, David Wilcox got an IQ of 180. He's very intelligent. He could be earning a lot more money in the corporate world. I did hear that apparently the cabal offered him like a lot of money to work for them and to represent them, and he refused. So he's not in it for the money.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely not in it for the money. I mean, he could do what a lot of people do, you know? And the thing of it is, if you have morals, you're not going to do that anyway, you know? And I see him as a moral person, but I also see him as a person who's not perfect, and, you know, he might get himself worked up sometimes with some of the intel, thinking that certain things are going to happen, and he usually is good about saying, you know, this could happen, maybe it doesn't happen, but then they're not really looking at the whole thing. They're not listening to the whole thing. They hear the part that they want to hear, and then they use that sort of as a way to go back and be angry or whatever, which is kind of sad.
I mean, anything could be happening. He could have bad intel.
Right.
He could be getting overexcited about the intel, or the intel could change. You know, these are unpredictable things happen.
Yeah, you can't predict something like that, and you've got to also know that maybe some of these trusted sources don't have trusted sources themselves, you know, or like you said, I think most of the time it is maybe they put out disinformation because they want to throw people off a little bit, you know, and I think that happens a lot in these programs because they have to do that, you know. And but if you look at the chart and you see how many times was he correct versus how many times was he wrong, the correct chart is a much, you know, stronger. I think, you know, there's been more times where things were correct. And the same thing with Q. You know, there's been more proofs than there have been disproofs, and so that's the kind of the way I look at that. But I want okay, go ahead.
I just want to say, like, I disagree. Like, I think that it's fair for us to question and go and be disappointed sometimes,
right?
You know, like I was honestly disappointed, and I was like, you know, I was kind of like, oh man, you know, maybe that shouldn't have happened, or maybe that should have been handled a different way or something. But I really am not a fan of people calling people shills because they made a mistake.
Yes,
or
right.
Calling people out publicly and trashing on people.
Yeah, I've had to.
We can call out the issue and go, hey guys, let's be more careful about making predictions without calling out particular people and speaking ill of them.
Yeah, but he also did say, if people actually listen to the whole thing, later on in the conversation, he was saying, now this may happen, it may not happen. You know, it depends on the timing of when they want to do it, and that's a very important fact. And a lot of people, you know, his things are like 3-4 hours long. I know people who are spot listening to that. They're not listening from end to end the whole thing. So you're going to miss certain parts of him clarifying himself in there. And what would be kind of cool to do is to go back sometimes and create little mini snippet videos of these areas where it kind of shows that he's doing that kind of, thing where he's kind of covering all bases, and then just kind of put that out and say, hey, look, this is what he really said. Not that there aren't times where he does just flat out make a mistake, but this time I felt like he was at least trying to clarify that point.
Well, there was some Q drops the other day. I mean, people have got to understand, he would get some of his information from some of the insiders that would get the same information Q gets. Now, Q was saying the other day in one of the drops that you don't reveal all your information. If you're playing poker, you don't show your cards. If you're playing chess, you don't show or tell the opponent what your next move is, because if you do, you're giving them advanced information that they can use against you. So sometimes I believe information is given strategically. They're not going to give precise dates. They can't do that because it is like a huge chess game. At the moment, I honestly believe we're in the middle of World War III, but it's a different type of World War III to what people would ever have.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that one.
No, it's an economic, it's a biological war, it's a psychological war, it's a war against the cabal and possibly the CCP in China. It's not nuclear. Hopefully it will never go nuclear, but people have got to be very careful what they do, and strategic information will be given out at certain times. So
that's right.
That's
right.
Interesting thing that I kind of noticed about that Q post too. I think it was the same drop. I always call Q he. Who knows what Q? But
right.
But I think of it as a Q talking. But anyway, that drop. It said something about patriots giving. Like jumping to conclusions or being too hasty to name dates and to give out predictions of the future.
Yes.
But it called them patriots. Okay, it didn't say shills. It said patriots, and it said, but it said what shills do is whine. Shills
right
whine
here.
and complain.
Yeah, this is the
yeah.
one.
So they're still patriots.
Yeah.
But David Wilcock is a patriot. Everybody involved who's trying to serve, maybe they're messing things up or doing something to set the alliance back a little bit, but they're still patriots. They're still people who love their country and are trying to do the right thing, or love humanity and trying to do
right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, they're all trying to do the same thing.
Global patriot.
Right. Yeah. So Desiree, when we're on the topic of dreams, was there any? I know you have a lot of crazy dreams and things like that, and I have them too. But do you have anything that was prophetic for you? That's something that sort of did come true in the realm of dreams.
Yeah, like it was like, well, not like huge things. It'd be like silly things. Like I would have a dream that, like, I used to go to the consignment shops to trade in clothes. That was like a hobby of mine. And I had a dream that I went and took in a bunch of clothes to this place that I always go to. This is just an example of one of the dreams that I've had. And I had went in the dream, I had walked up to the counter and I gave a big pile of clothes. And then, she looked at the clothes and calculated how much money that I was going to get for the clothes. And it came out to, I'm just going to throw a number because I can't remember the number out. It was something like $50.75 or something like that.
Something specific.
In the dream.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. And I was like, and I woke up the next day. I was like, that's weird. That's so funny that it came out to it gave me an amount. And it was not uncommon for me to go to this place. I went like every other day because it was a big hobby, and plus I was selling clothes on the internet.
Right.
So I went over to the shop and I gave her the clothes and I said, hey, I had a really funny dream that I knew the exact amount. And I just told her that, the exact amount. And I did my shopping, looked around and came back. And she gives me this receipt. She says, "Oh, it's only like $30-some that I'm getting for it." I'm like, "Okay, I guess the dream didn't come true." I didn't give her the amount that I had because she was already looking at me like I was weird. And I looked at the pile of the clothes. I said, "Wait a minute, did you get that pile over there?" And she goes, "Oh, I forgot to add those." So she grabs it, adds it, and it comes back exactly to the cent.
Oh my god!
Yes.
Wow.
Now that was just an example of like, I mean, even though it was meaningless
It's
to
meaningless,
anybody but myself.
I think those things are teaching us something, right? It teaches us that we can tap into the future. We can tap into these different realms and kind of derive information in different ways. And for that to happen like that is not a coincidence. You couldn't win the lottery at that rate, you know? There's no way. So that's interesting. That's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like stories
I've had
that.
stuff like that. Not like I get premonitions like what's going to happen in the world. It's like literally.
Yeah, well, for me, I get premonitions, but they're usually like, I'll get a word or something like that. I'll get like what happened the other day, like with your friend there, or we were talking in what was it, Tucson? I said I don't know if I felt like I needed to just text that to you and tell you, because I like to do that to people, because if I get these little messages, I tell people so that when things happen and it's related to something, then I know that it was like a premonition, you know, that they're giving me some kind of information. And I said, I'm getting this word Tucson. I don't understand. Like, and then you came back with your friend was getting ready to leave to go to Tucson or something like that. And then I said, well, maybe that's a message to say hold off a day or something. That's what I was feeling at the time. I'm like, hold off a day. Just, you never know. Like, it could be like, you know, to avoid a car accident, something like that. You just never know. So I usually get those kind of messages like that. And then I also get a couple that were like prophetic. When you remember when the Republicans were playing softball and they had that shooting that time? Does anyone remember that? It was a couple years back, or several years back, where they were all playing and there was a shooting and one of the Republicans got shot. No one got killed, but you know, it was another little kind of incident with guns, you know. And the day before that, I had kept getting this message: Republicans, guns, shooting, you know, violence, blah blah blah. And I wrote it all down because I'm being taught by a psychic to just do that, you know, actually start writing things down. And then sure enough, the next day this all happens. And then I had another incident with a military plane crash, and I was getting plane crash and, you know, different things. And then not the next day, but the day after, that plane actually had crashed. So that's the kind of stuff that I get. I don't know why. I mean, it's so, even that seems meaningless. Like, what am I going to do with that information other than to maybe like just tell people about it, and maybe the right person hears it and maybe something can be avoided? I don't know. Or if it's just for my own knowledge that I have this capability of being tapped into the source field, if you will, or the ether, you know.
Now, I did have a premonition of this sort when I really started meditating like regularly. I was having kind of beginner's luck where I just was having, it was like constantly things coming to me. And I know very little about politics and current events. Like, I'm not very good at it. I forget facts, and I fail to make connections and stuff. So I didn't know many names of politicians and things like that. But so I never heard this name. Like, I really don't think I'd ever heard this name. I was meditating. I got the name wrong, okay? I saw the name. So I was meditating. This was like maybe 2 years ago. I was meditating, and this name came to me, and it said David Dunes, okay? Dunes. But I wrote down like a few different versions of it. It was unclear. Like, I wrote like Devin Dunes, David Dunes, and different versions of it. And then
You were getting the
I
gist
went
of it.
downstairs to make coffee, and I live in a high-rise building, and there's a coffee maker downstairs in the lobby, and so I was making coffee. First thing I saw, they have a TV where the news is running all the time. First thing I saw when I looked at the TV was the name Devin Nunes, and I knew
Wow.
this is a name I should probably remember.
Yeah.
And so I wrote down the name Devin Nunes, and lo and behold,
Wow.
it turns out to be a very important name right now.
Yes, it is. Wow, that's crazy.
I don't know
huh?
who that is.
He's another Republican who's, I believe, had some issues, right? Maybe.
Well, he has something to do with. I'm really bad. He has something to do with countering the bogus Russiagate allegations.
Right. He works heavily in that area to kind of bring out the information to the public, I believe. And in fact, didn't they try to go after him for something and try to silence him in some ways? I remember that. I think I kind of remember it. Yeah, you and I understand, but you kind of like follow politics on the surface, and then you kind of get the gist of things, and you can kind of see what's connected, but then you don't really want to dig into too deep into it because it's just a corrupt rabbit hole that just needs to be,
Well, it's just too boring.
It's boring too. Yeah.
I like getting into the weird stuff.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
He
that's
keeps
true.
it
Yeah.
weird enough that that it holds my attention.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very because it really is mostly politics, but at the same point, he is like throwing in the fringe stuff a little bit here and there by answering questions about UFOs and whatnot, and saying there are programs outside the public domain and that kind of stuff. So
Just the fact that it exists is weird. You
Yeah.
know, like everybody waiting for the next cue drop, and you can't understand most of it.
yeah, and we're not
But the whole
supposed to.
game of trying to decipher it, it's like a living game.
Oh,
of,
some of these people too are amazing. I mean, sure, this is their full-time job for a lot of them, but at the same point, they're really pulling some interesting facts and connecting dots and doing a lot of work. So, along the lines of social media and all of this stuff, a lot of stuff has been thrown around out there lately. Not thrown around, but there's a lot of stuff's been shared just in the last couple of days. And one of those videos that Q was posting, linked to, was this movie or this documentary, Out of the Shadows. I don't know if everybody has seen that already. That one
Incredible.
is incredible. It takes all of this information. I don't think it gets into the secret space program because it did kind of fall apart, sleeping a little bit in the middle of it. But I did wake up and catch the most of it. So, but the main theme was about this one was about Hollywood and its connections with the CIA and.
Oh, wait a
all
minute. Is that one the Tom Cruise?
They did mention Tom Cruise in there, right?
No. Okay, so I'm thinking of something. I'm thinking of that Tom Cruise movie that he made
this is
about the Illuminati. Not the Illuminati, about the cults. Like,
I can actually.
it's called something like that. It came out like in the maybe 90s.
Let me bring it up real quick.
Eyes Closed Shut or something like that. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. Eyes Wide Shut, yeah.
Eyes Wide Shut, something like that. That's the one I thought you were talking about.
I'm not
Never
a big
mind.
movie guy because I don't really have a lot of time for movies, but there are a few that I will watch here and there if they're relative to this topic or these topics. And but this is the movie here. Let me just share this real quick if I can get it in there.
Yeah.
Can you see
Thanks
the
for
browser?
sending that to me, by the way, Rick. I watched that yesterday, and that was amazing.
It is, right? It's unreal.
Yeah. And they talk about MK Ultra, or call it the Illuminati, or
Yeah, they called it something.
and
They called it pizza. They
Pedophilia.
didn't call it Pizza Gate. They called it something else Gate. But I'll probably get the video taken down for saying that. But
yeah, you're not supposed to say that word.
yeah, we'll say Pizza Fence like the EOW guys do. But that usually keeps it off the algorithm. But let's see.
Yeah.
This is the video here. Desiree.
Oh, pizza fence. They call Ben and Rob call it pizza fence.
Yeah, Pizza
and
Fence. Right.
and the other one they call the Illuma Donkey. So
Donkey.
we'll use them terms.
Well, yeah, we'll use it. So far, it's working for them. So, but this is the out of the Shadow. It's basically a documentary that kind of goes into the Hollywood connection, and the CIA, and actually the funny thing was I saw an interview with somebody. I don't know who was doing the interview. It might have even been James. I'm thinking. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was Red Pill 78. Did an interview with somebody that worked in Hollywood and actually was there at the time that they set up. She had been in there for 40 years or so. Wait a minute, she was younger. I think she said 20 years. She was in there for 20 years, and she had seen them set up the CIA office there. Right after, I think, 9/11 or something like that, they had set up an office so they can help control the narrative and kind of put out propaganda and that kind of stuff. And this movie kind of covers that topic, and I mean it covers, pizza fence. It covers all of the corrupt, Satanism, everything. But this is the intro.
Why do you believe what you believe? Because at some point in your life, you trusted the information that somebody was giving you, and that someone you trusted told you that a car was a car, a tree was a tree, a bird was a bird, the blue stuff above you is the sky. And that's the way that we began to determine what we believe to be a fact. Most of the things that we believe to be a fact in our lives are told to us through our stories or the news that we hear. So my question would be, if they were deceiving you with the stories they tell you, would you be able to recognize that? So we've all heard the term conspiracy theory. Personally, for me, I've never really had time to get into any of that because, frankly, I'm working all the time and I don't have the time to look into Bigfoot or aliens or flat Earth or 9/11 conspiracy or the JFK assassination. It's just, it's not anything that I really have any backstory on. But the one thing that I do have a lot of backstory on, the one thing I do know a lot about is Hollywood.
So yeah, so that's...
When you think about the entertainment industry,
basically,
what comes to mind? Movies, TV, music, right?
So that's where it goes on from there. And it digs down deep into all these different topics and kind of connects a lot of the dots for everyone. Actually, was I showing that? Were you seeing that on the video or not?
Yes, I saw it.
Okay, good.
It was good. Everything's good.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, that was one of the things I wanted to see what your thoughts were on that, David, to see if there was something in there that really sort of stood out that was beyond what you already knew, or it just kind of did a good job of putting it all together in one big picture.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I mean, I've been researching stuff for 20 years now, and most of it I have heard. It filled in a few details going on in Hollywood. A lot of the recent stuff that's come out is new to me. I mean, people like Alison Mack, I didn't know about that. That was a bit of a surprise when I found that out. The MK Ultra stuff, well, I think I said to you yesterday, I've actually met Kathy O'Brien. I went to a Nexus conference. It was about 20 years ago now, and that was my red pill. I'd never heard about any of this stuff until I went there, and she stood on the stage with her husband Mark. He used to be associated with the CIA. He found out what was going on with her. He wasn't involved with any of this stuff, but he knew people that were, and he pulled her out of it. And what she shared, or what they shared between them, was so terrifying. It was so horrific. I bought their book, Transformation of America. I got Kathy to sign it, and at the end, a group of us were standing talking to Kathy and Mark, and I remember giving her a big hug and just burst into tears. It's
Yeah,
hard
I
to
mean,
believe that any human being could treat another human being the way she was treated. I mean, when she was hunted, I won't go into the details. It was just absolutely disgusting. So they talked about that last night. They tied all that in with Hollywood and, as I said, the pizza fence and the Illuma donkey, how it all gels together. What even blows my mind even today is how deep it all goes. It is so complex, and that's why it's so difficult for me when I go out into the world around me and people say, "What's going on, Dave?" And I try to explain it to them, and they think I'm mad. They say, "Oh, I can't believe that anybody would be doing this stuff. I can't believe that this could be so organized." I say to them, look, I can't explain it to you. All I can say is it's been going on for years and years and years, and it is so complex now. I said, the world is being run by a satanic cabal, and I said they have infiltrated every single level of civilization. Kathy and Mark actually did warn us 20 years ago here in Australia. They said it's really strong out here in America at the moment, because they're from America. They said in the United Kingdom, not so bad here in Australia. But I tell you what, they said it's coming out, so you guys had better wake up and get ready for it. Well, it's very, very entrenched out here now, and I won't go into too much detail about it. Last time I was talking about this on a chat show, the line got interrupted. It was it was a live line on Facebook, and I suddenly got blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, right.
So I won't say too much about the government out here, but I know it is here now, and we're catching up with you, unfortunately. In fact, I would say you're probably in a better position than us now, because people have really woken up in America, and you have a leader that was recruited by the Alliance to fight against this. Whatever anyone believes, I know for absolute sure that he is one of the good guys, and he is out to clean this stuff up. One of the things that I learned recently was, your president has never been involved in any of the secret societies like the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group. He's never been involved in any of that, and that is why the Alliance recruited him, because they knew he was clean.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, to be as successful as he was, I mean, that's why he never drank, he never did drugs, because he didn't want to be influenced by anything dark. So he was always, he knew right from the get-go that if you get involved with too much of that kind of stuff, you could be taken advantage of, If you're out at bars drinking and doing things like that, people could slip things in your drink. You never know. It's
exactly
it's a tough world.
As I said to you last night, Rick, I was approached by the Scientologists when I was in the UK. They had their head office. There's a castle up the road from where I was living. They tried to recruit me. They actually wanted me in their SEAL, which is their intelligence organization, and they said, we can identify you as someone that would do really well in our organization. And I got out of that. I was approached by the Knights Templar here in Sydney. They wrote to me after I'd actually written an article, and it was all about religion and the Roman Catholic Church and that. And then from that, I got a letter through the mail inviting me to go out, and they said, attend one of our meetings. If we like you and you like us, then you can join up. They said, but don't expect, they said to me, don't expect to learn too much too soon. We have to get to know you first. When I looked into what getting to know me meant, I kept well away from there, I can tell you.
Yeah, find ways to influence you or to blackmail you.
Because what they do, they get something on you.
The honeypots.
And once they've got something on you, then you're their tool. They can make you do whatever they want.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with Epstein Island and the pedophilia and bringing people there to kind of blackmail them, to have full control over our politics, our politicians, and if they can't get anything on them sexually, they'll find other ways, to get information on them. And if you're dirty in any way, you're gonna fall. And I think, honestly, a lot of them, they're not just tricked into it. I think a lot of them are actually groomed for this, to be honest with you. from day one. Like they go through the secret societies, they go through all that initiation from a very young age, and then they work their way into politics, and then they're already easily influenced. They've already got dirt on them from day one.
Could you imagine being born into one of those rich families? We won't mention names, but into one of the 13 bloodline families. You get born into it as a little baby.
There's nothing you can do.
You get groomed from birth. You have no choice. There are some people that have got out of it, but what's happened to them, they generally stay poor for the rest of their life. They're never going to be successful anywhere, and if they're lucky that they don't get killed. So if you're born into that family, you are expected to go along with that family, and you're expected to get involved with some very horrific things.
Yeah, and it's like you're forced into it. It's you don't have a say. There was a couple of videos about English kids talking about how their father was having them kill babies and stuff like that. I mean, just sick stuff. That these kids were rescued through some means. I don't know how that happened. I don't know the full story. It looks legitimate, but they look totally desensitized to the whole idea of it, the way they were described. They seemed like it bothered them, but not like they weren't breaking down crying, because they were so mentally broken at that point that it just seemed like the normal thing. They were sort of like a matter of fact, this is what we were doing as children. And it's sad. That's why if the arrests do happen, these mass arrests happen, we do have to consider the humanity behind it. We have to consider that this is multi-generational, that there weren't choices always in all of this stuff. And in fact, you can look at the faces of some of these people as an empath and see that they're not happy. You can see that inside themselves, they're struggling within.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think a lot of people are turning, and they will turn as things come up. I actually pray for some of these people, and I think that's what we should do rather than hating them. I mean, I've been in groups where people are picking on certain individuals who are known to be in the cabal, and they're saying some horrible things about them. It's like, well, I feel the same. I feel the same inside, but I teach myself not to hate these people, because what that does, it just produces negative energies around you.
Yes,
which can in turn attract negative energies.
Yes.
So you need to learn to actually love and be tolerant. And so, I
be an observer.
Some of these people.
Yeah, be an observer of a world where we know duality exists. We know the duality is here for our ascension. It's for us to learn from. And it's for us to move away from. Also, eventually, we're supposed to root it out. We're supposed to get rid of it. That's the whole part. That's part of ascension, right? Otherwise, if we all join along with the negativity, we're just going to all self-destruct. And I don't think that's God's plan. I don't think it ever works that way. From all the stories I've heard about planetary ascension, it's always been the good guys win out over the evil. And I truly believe that in my soul and my heart.
Yeah, it's part of God's divine plan that we've got to have the duality. We have to have the evil there so we can really appreciate the good. And I mean, I happen to believe, I talk all about this in my novel, The Torah Legacy, that the divine plan of creation is that the Creator, projects into the creation as every single one of us, every single being in the universe, and every single being is having all these experiences, good and bad, so that the Creator can understand itself. It's eternal, always has been, exists beyond time, space, reality, so it was never created, it's always been there. And it created all this so it can experience itself. So we are part of this great big plan, but the idea is we've been given individuality, so at the end of the day we can work it out for ourselves, because the Creator doesn't want to be out there alone. The Creator wants us all to be interacting and to grow, and this is what it's all about. When you understand that, it helps you to be more tolerant towards the evil in the world. Instead of just hating on people, you can actually pray for them and hope that they see the error of their ways and come around. And I believe that's going to happen. It's part of the Great Awakening. And I think the energy of this planet is going to rise so high that those people with utterly evil vibrations will not be able to exist here. So they either get
Right.
with the program
Yeah.
or they get out of the program.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's so. And now that gets into the science behind the solar flash and all that stuff. That's part of ascension. So there's a semi-physical aspect, but I think a lot of that energy coming from the center of the galaxy, if you will, is spiritual energy, more so than anything scientific that they can explain. Because I even watched the videos of Paul Laviolette way back in the early days with Project Camelot. I don't know if you've seen any of those videos, but he talks about how there's a whole different science behind what that is. But they know that it's coming in science, but they weren't allowed to talk about it. They weren't allowed to talk about this energy wave coming in from the center of the galaxy, and that's an interesting connection. I wanted to get Desiree's thoughts on the idea of forgiveness and loving. It's not loving, but sort of accepting this idea of duality and all of the bad things that happen in the world and how they can affect us personally. Because I know you've experienced a lot of things in your life, and I have as well in my own life, where things have come at me hard and very unusual things, if you will, where the average person probably wouldn't get through that. And so what is it that keeps your heart in alignment with keeping the hatred out? Because I know, like he was saying, that you can't, if you turn to the negative and you turn to the hate and you turn to this feeling of being vengeful, then they win. I think that's when the cabal wins. They win in that sense. I wonder if you feel that way.
Okay, so let me tell you a little story. I don't know if I already told it to you, but I'll say it again. I think I was full of hatred, rage. I wanted revenge. I wanted justice. I wanted I was at a lower vibration. And I remember when Richard took his life, and I was mad. I was mad at him. I remember I was in the kitchen, and I was like saying all of these horrible things to him, calling him a coward, and saying that I went through the same thing you went through, and I didn't kill myself, and you couldn't handle the pain, so you killed yourself and gave all the pain to me. And I was like yelling at him, and he had been dead for about a week at this time. And I was like, I have to fight this on my own, and I was just angry. It was like my blood was boiling. And as I'm doing this, I'm like, yelling at the top of my lungs, and there was this powerful feeling of love, like a blanket was thrown on me. And the feeling was so, like, I can't even explain it, but all of these lower vibration feelings all just went away. I dropped to the floor and I started hysterically crying, because I was like, this is real. This is real. There's something here with me. I don't know what it was. I couldn't explain it. And once that happened to me, I was on a journey to figure out where the soul went and why he killed himself, or where does, the Bible says that you kill yourself, you go to hell. So I didn't want to accept that. So after feeling that, I was on this journey, this spiritual journey, where I needed to find out the truth. And through my journey, I was starting to look up the near-death experiences. I started looking up different people's views on where the soul goes when you die. And then when I was diving into this, I started finding all of this material regarding, about, us coming here. We choose to come here, and we choose to, live a certain way or experience something for lessons. And I remember the day that I was walking at work. I was taking a break, and I was walking at work with my best friend, and we were walking, and I just said, you know what? I don't want to hate anymore. I don't want to hate. I don't want to be angry anymore. and be pissed off because of what happened to me, what I had to go through. So I'm going to forgive everybody that's done this to me. And I know that it wasn't an overnight process. It's like every day, even still today, every day, I have to say, I forgive you. I'm going to release
That's so
this energy.
important to know. It's so important to know that forgiveness isn't just a flipping a switch. Forgiveness is an ongoing process of maintaining that vibration of love enough to, and because we're human, right? We're going to slip up. We're going to have our bad days. We're going to go back to feeling like we want revenge. But when you're really focused on the right intentions, you're able to pull yourself out of that really quickly and say, oh, no, that's not the way to go. Because then it's like, now I become perpetual victim for the rest of my life, and then they win, and we could never ever let that happen.
Yeah, and once I decided to do that, my whole life changed, like for the better. Like as soon as I let go of all of this negative energy, all of a sudden I started to notice that people were gravitating towards me. People wanted to hang out with me. People wanted to talk to me. And I was like, wow, because before I was a Debbie Downer. Like I'd be like, poor me, this is happening to me, I'm going through this, and I noticed that when you're in that lower vibration, it's naturally, that people will push you away.
Yeah.
And so having this happen to me, I was like, wow, it changed my life.
It changes your whole life.
And I started to manifest like different things in my life that I needed, that I wanted. And I was like, wow, this is so crazy. When you start
your
feeling
true
at this
soul
higher
shines
vibration,
through. Your true soul shines through when you embrace love and forgiveness. It's like, and those are the biggest lessons I think that we come here to learn, is love and forgiveness in the most unbelievable, sickening possible experiences that exist out there, including the stuff that happens. I mean, the stuff that happens to kids is really, really hard to just forgive. When you say you forgive, it just means that you're not going to hold hatred towards it in your heart, but it doesn't mean you don't want justice, that you don't seek the truth on it, and that you don't want justice or to eliminate those things. It's just that we can't engage at that level of hatred, because that just bogs us down in the hate, and we just feel defeated when we're in that mode. And I felt the same way with the things I went to my personal things that at some point I will share as well. But when you said we come here,
oh, sorry, Karen.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've just got a little story that just popped into my head I'd like to share.
Okay.
If you want to go ahead, please do so. But
I was just going to drop one little thing that kind of tacks onto this nicely. Then we'll switch to you. Was the thing that she was talking about how when we come here, we choose this, the situations that we go through. We choose these experiences, and as soon as you understand that aspect of it, there are no victims. There are no coincidences. There are none of these things. And the reason that I know this, and this is a story that's on my website that I put out in detail that people can read, is that I remember before I was born. I remember the calling. I remember being out in the universe someplace, just looking at the magnificent, just this beautiful universe, like looking at, I don't know what you call them, but just different shapes and colors and different things. That's all I can remember, is everything was just so beautifully colored. And all of a sudden I get this call, like some kind of a calling from behind me. It was directly behind me too, and it was loud, and it wasn't a loud terrifying thing. It was a loud and a very like not forceful but impacting, like your soul. It was like a direct soul connection. And it was a knowing that there was a problem someplace in the universe. So in that moment, I was thrust back in the other. As soon as I turned in the other direction, I was headed like almost instantaneously to a scene where I was standing in front of two beings. They looked like angels, like people would describe. They're dressed in the same kind of garb that you hear people talking about, this golden shimmering, it's not real clothing. It's just something, an expression of clothing or something. It's almost like they're bringing me from the total ethereal body to something that's more human-like, to get me prepared for this question. So the question was, I reviewed a plan of some sort. I don't remember the plan, but I know I reviewed a plan. And I had to agree to the plan. And they asked me 3 times before I was born whether I was ready for this or not. And on the 3rd time, I was instantaneously thrust through that light tunnel that they all talk about, where you have this like a little dot, and then the little dot gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just this all-encompassing loving light of God, or just source, or however you want to describe it. It was pure love, and I still get the chills when I describe this. I felt like I was coming into my body at the time of birth, like I had not been in the womb myself as a spirit. Maybe the body was physically growing, but there was no spirit within it until I was born in that instant. It was almost like an emergency. They wanted to get me there quick, you know. So I get born, and I'm still remembering this meeting as I'm being born, and I'm born into the even brighter light within the room, because now I'm actually using my physical eyes, and I'm still feeling like the atoms in my body are still coming together. I'm feeling the full vibration and love of God. And I'm so happy and excited to be here. And I remember them placing me in the bassinet, and that's all I can remember. That's the story of how I know we review a contract and we come here with certain, things that we decided to do. And I've never forgot that. I always thought maybe it was something I made up in my mind, but how does a kid, from the very first years that you can start remembering things, I don't think I ever forgot it, ever since an infant. So, yeah. So that's an interesting. Hopefully, that's a segue somewhat into what David wanted to talk next. But
that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, Rick. I have heard of other stories similar to that. So it sounds very.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these people who claim to be starseeds will talk about knowing or having this sort of review process before they came here. And I don't think of myself as special. I don't go around talking about this a lot. It sounds crazy, number one, so it's kind of hard to say, but I'm not afraid to talk about it now, because, I'm getting up there in age. I'm like, I want to tell people my stories, because wouldn't you know, I have 2 or 3 other stories where I have these same beings show up in my life, okay, same looking beings, and I've had a niece who's had visions of these things in her dreams, and all kinds of different things would show up in my life. That's all on my website too, where one time I had to lift a car that had flipped over to get it back on its own wheels, and these beings were there assisting me in some way. But that's an interesting story we'll get into another time. But it's very cool to go back and see the correlation between what I experienced before I was born, and then some of these things where I was saved in different ways. I was saved from drowning. I saved somebody in that car situation, and there's another story out there as well on that. But anyway, it's cool stuff.
That's amazing, Mick. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's incredible. I don't have memories like that, but all the insights I've got have been through doing past life regressions, but I really can't say that I actually remember anything prior to my birth. But what I was going to share, just going back to what Desiree was saying, is just I remember about 20 years ago now, my father died, and I jumped on a plane. I went back to the United Kingdom. I got there. My friend David picked me up from Heathrow Airport, and he said, when we get to your place, the police will be coming over to visit you. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I said, do they think there were suspicious circumstances? My dad was actually found behind his car one morning, and he hadn't come home that night. Anyway, he said, well, yeah, you'll find out. Anyway, it turns out, to keep a long story short, he was assaulted, he was robbed, and while I was out there, we couldn't even go ahead with the funeral because there was police investigations. They actually chased one of the guys up to Scotland, caught him, brought him back, and yeah, a friend of mine was saying, "Oh, I've got people that can sort them out," and because there was a lot of rage, there was a lot of anger around it. I had to go home. I didn't even get to go to my dad's funeral because of complications. So I happened to be doing counselling, a counselling course, holistic counselling course at the time, and part of what we had to do was go to counselling classes. So I went along to one of the counsellors who was doing our classes, our personal sessions. And she said, you've been away? I said, yes, I have. She goes, oh, what happened? So I told her. Then she said, well, would you like to do some work around this? I said, yeah, I will. I was still very angry, and they call it focusing. So what she's done, she's got me to close my eyes. It's not hypnosis or anything, but you just start to focus in on your body and you start to look at the reactions in your body. I could feel the anger and I could feel aches and pains in my body because of it. And she's saying, right, I want you to visualize the guys that did this. And I said, well, there was one in particular. The other one was kind of like a follower on. I said, my anger's all towards the main one. And she says, okay, well, look, how would you, I want you to try and look at this from a higher perspective. What do you see? And I said, well, I see someone that is completely surrounded by all this dark energy. I said, it's just dark and solid. It's just horrible energy. And she says, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm still pretty angry. No, I'm not talking about you. She said, elevate your thoughts. She says, take your consciousness to a higher level. And she said, what can you see? I said, I see light. And she says, tell me, what does the light want to do? And I said, the light wants to burn away all the dark energy away from this person so that they can see the badness of what they've done so that they can reform themselves. Anyway, she's like, bingo. Anyway, she sort of brings me back, and what I found was all the anger had gone. I was able to forgive the guy. I've never actually met him. I've never seen him. But I all the anger went. I just didn't have any anger.
Wow.
I actually felt sorry for him. It turns out he's deaf and dumb. He's a very angry person himself. And he takes out his aggression on other people. He went to jail for it along with the other guy. And for the last 20 years, I can say I've totally forgiven him. I don't have any resentment. I've never ever, he still lives in the town where I'm from. I've never wanted to catch up with him. I've never wanted to exact any kind of revenge over him. It's so liberating, and I put a lot of that down to that little bit of work that counsellor did with me.
That's
it was
incredible.
Absolutely wonderful.
Wow. It doesn't take much when you're really just able to. And sometimes it does help to get someone to help you think in those ways, or just to help you. Yeah, but it's tough. It's tough though when you lose someone you love.
It is,
and
it is ongoing. You can't just sort of say, "Oh yeah, I'm transformed now." What Desiree was saying about what she went through, I've been through a very similar sort of breakthrough. And what I found was many of the companies I've worked for, a lot of the people didn't really like me very much. I didn't really get on with people. It was all about me. And then one day I had a big breakthrough like that, and I suddenly found people were nice. People wanted me around. I'd walk in the office and people say, I'm so glad you're here, because you're smiling, you're happy, you change the environment when you walk in. People never used to say that in the past, I can tell you.
Yeah, it can be tough sometimes depending on the environment, whether you can turn people around a lot. But if you're in a semi-normal environment where people will be receptive to that, or could be receptive to that, they're picking up on your energy just like you're picking up on theirs. It can become a cyclical problem. And I'm always the one at work that's trying to I'm serious. I'm a technical guy and I want to get things done and I want them to be right. But I'm always trying to help people figure things out better and to kind of work more as a team instead of it being I'm the best guy or whatever. It's all your mentality and your intention and how you go about your everyday life and how you treat other people. And if you I always think back to what Corey says, if you could take a focus on service and make that be your main thing, then everything else sort of falls in place. Because what goes along with service is love, right? If you have love for the people around you, then you're going to receive that, I think, in return, if you're in the right environment. But I've also been in environments where no matter what you do, it doesn't seem to get anywhere, and that's when it's time to change your environment. Maybe that's the message that you need to hear, that okay, you just need a different place where you can thrive a little bit more. So I was going to ask Stephen if he's had any sort of major breakthroughs in that area.
Well, I have thoughts about forgiveness, and okay, so and I don't know if my sound's good because
it's good.
My battery is low, and I can't have my headphones in the whatever. But thoughts that I have about that, how do we forgive the cabal or bad actors and things like that? I have a few thoughts about that. For one, I think every single person deserves to be innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
Even if Q gave a list and said, "Hey, these people are compromised," we don't know what level to which they were compromised,
or how they were brought into it.
Or like say, like everybody, there's a lot of memes going around. Like, I agree, probably Tom Hanks, is profoundly compromised. But I'm not going to make any guesses. These are very serious allegations.
Right. You have to see the innocent until proven guilty is the only way. It's
right. Right, and we have no idea to
Right.
what degree, how they became compromised, anything like that. I think it was a really it was a really good thing that David did, publicly giving the benefit of the doubt to Oprah Winfrey.
Right.
We don't know. Q
But to say for sure the other way too is not good either. You can't say I know absolutely there's no way that she could do
exactly.
that.
And what we can't be doing is just calling them outright
right.
Satanists, cannibals, and things like that.
Right.
Because we don't know.
Yeah, they all have to play together, right? They all have to play together in this world. So we don't know just because someone's got a picture with them together.
Correct. We spread photographs of people standing and smiling together.
Yeah.
As though
that was the judgment.
Proves something.
Yeah.
Or we all the time we're at parties and we stand and smile together. Yeah. It doesn't mean anything, especially if you're all billionaires and major cultural influencers. You're going to be in rooms together sometime.
That's right.
I think that we all ought to just cool off, stop acting like we are warriors of justice.
Exactly.
With things that we don't even understand.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with looking into things and connecting dots and trying to come up with evidence. That's fine. But when you say, "Hey, this is there's no way, without a doubt, I know one way or the other," because you don't. You have to have the trial. You have to have the full list of evidence that you're never going to see.
Right.
So it's nice to have the Q dissemination program to help us say, "Hey, here's the progress on what's going on," but he's still not giving you the facts. He's not giving you all the data, and they're not meant to do that. They're meant to just keep you informed that something might happen here and there, and that things to pay attention to and to connect some of the dots, and then eventually the big picture will come out. So it's not until there's a true disclosure of all of this stuff. I truly hope what David is saying happens. I don't know if it'll happen, but I feel in my heart like something like that has to happen at some point. And with all these sealed indictments, it's just impossible for them not to do them, and not to do them at least in large batches. Because there's just so many people. And the way that if you're going to just do one every year, I mean, you got 100 years there or more. It's like, and it'll never get done.
Yeah, but I think what we need to turn inward and work
Yeah.
on our own stuff
Right.
instead of. I think it's a very 3D thing to always need a villain to be angry at,
Right,
and maybe
right.
there are things to
Right.
be angry.
You can
at.
have a villain and not be angry. You can have a
Sure.
villain and just and this is the way I think police officers have to be. They have to be impartial, right? They have to go into a situation and say, "I'm just doing my job. I'm just here
Right.
to arrest you
But it's
because
not our
you
job.
broke the law."
It's
Right.
I'm not the police and
No.
and the National Guard and the president.
Yeah.
I'm just a painter. I'm just an artist, and
it's
like I have my own work to do on myself.
yeah, right.
So,
Me too.
so I think it's interesting to me. Like I want justice to happen for people who have done very
For
wrong
suffering,
things, and
yeah.
I want them to be out of harm's way, and I want healing for people who have been hurt. But I can't be putting all of my energy into that.
No.
I have enough of my own work to do.
Right,
on
right.
my
Yeah.
own.
We all do. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yes.
the thing. And that's where you're going to win the battle anyway, is through keeping your energy vibe high. That has an exponential effect on the people around you. And
Right.
that's the whole idea of ascension, is to raise that vibration and to keep it high. And the more you dig into the rabbit hole in a sense of wanting to have more fodder for your anger, then I think you're going about it the wrong way. I totally agree with that. And then the same thing happens amongst people in the disclosure community. There's a lot of infighting, and people are automatically considered guilty until proven innocent, and it's like it puts them in a way that they have to constantly defend themselves, and
Nobody knows
that
anything.
right, and it's nobody's business. It's their business, right? If you want to run your business a certain way, you want to do copyright, you want to do. I mean, even if you want to, have an open marriage, for God's sakes, who the hell knows? I mean, you could do whatever you want to do. It's your business, nobody else's business.
Yeah.
It's like people should just step back and look at themselves, do your own work, and because that's where we can all come together, and to realize we're all human, we all make mistakes, we're all trying to get through this together. And this is a guy who, these people they've committed their whole life to telling you their story. They didn't have to do that. They could have kept their mouth shut the whole time, but they felt compelled to do that, to destroy their careers, destroy their any chance of getting a job. It's like people don't look at the sacrifice that some of these people make, and they have to start doing that and stop pointing the finger. And it's like James Gilliland always says, you got one finger pointing out and two pointing back, and I always remember that when he says that, because it's so true. As soon as we start going after people, this is what ends up happening. But anyway, so trying to think what else we want to try to cover here. We're getting on to the second hour. Well, we had that other documentary that was out by the Epoch Times about the CCP virus, so maybe we can cover that briefly and then end it from there. But this is the one put out by the Epoch Times. It's amazing. I don't know if you've seen this yet. Maybe we'll run the trailer on that one.
Yes, it's amazing.
It's so well done. It basically takes all the information that other people, like Edge of Wonder and those guys have sort of already put together a lot of this stuff, but they sort of have it more spread out, like more not sensationalized or just more elaborated. This is kind of a more brief overview of everything. It's only 15 minutes long, I think. 50. Let's see how long that is. Oh no, that's just actually
I don't know if
longer.
you heard, but we just had a big development in the unfolding Spygate investigations.
Yeah, we know.
It's just been reviewed.
I watch CNN, I watch Fox, I watch CBS, and in this case, there's a lot of things not being said.
almost certainly is a recombination event that was laboratory driven.
This is just the essential nature of Chinese communism. Chinese communism is evil.
Every person it harms is directly attributable to the Chinese Communist Party.
So that's the trailer on that one, pretty much. So has anybody seen that one yet?
Yeah, I watched that the other day.
Yeah, I saw
Very,
it too,
very
but yeah, I saw it too, but I didn't watch the whole thing because I
Yeah.
pretty much have, I didn't watch the whole thing though, but it was very well put together.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It basically points a lot to the fact that there's more to it than of course the official narrative is always going to be questionable when it comes from a communist government, I assume. But how did you feel about that, David? Was it different than what you would expect from what you've seen through Edge of Wonder, or was it sort of just more of the same? Or because I felt like it got more into the details of the proof on the documents and able to link and actually pulling in the PhD who's been doing that for 40 years. I forget what her name was. Do you remember what her name was? I forget the doc's name, but
yeah, I can't remember. But it's very much a summary of what Ben and Rob have been doing on the Edge of Wonder. They have done some additional research. There was some additional information. A lot of it was some of the technical things behind the virus and the creation of the virus. I really liked it. I thought it was a very good documentary. The only thing that there's a couple of things that seem to be left out of the scenario which we don't know a lot about. But one is with the CCP, their involvement with the Western cabal. And I think a lot of that comes from the exchange of money and the way they're supporting each other. So what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of all the attention and all the blame seems to be put on the Chinese Communist Party.
right.
And yeah, I mean, I would not defend them at all. I believe that they are the main players in this. But then you've got to look at all the other people that are working with them. The other thing is, I heard that there is a lot of infighting in China itself. We always view the CCP as one party that's completely united, and they're just this evil party all working against the West. Well, apparently, the current president, when he moved in, he had to move out all the previous president's people, moved all his own in, and so there is a lot of resentment between the two groups. The old president is still alive, he's very old now, but a lot of his supporters were ousted, and there was a lot of infighting in China itself. So what I'm still not too certain about whether this is all coming from the official Communist Party and the current president there, or whether some of this is actually coming from his opposition.
I think the same thing, because I think so you're saying he came in and people didn't like it, probably because he was trying to do good things, right? He was trying to do better by the people.
Well, no, I don't think there's a power struggle. So he came in, and apparently he brought all his own people in, and he brought his own family and his own friends, his own circle, and a lot of the others were ousted. Some of them were killed. Some of them were actually
so the people that were there were better, you think, than you know. So the people that were there were probably better people, and they were doing better for the people of China. And then when he brought in his own people, things got worse.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, one of the things I heard, with Falun Gong, you hear about the organ harvesting.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Apparently, what was happening in China was the party was actually becoming more liberal, and some of the Politburo were actually Falun Gong practitioners, so they were warming to it, and they actually supported. And when Xi Jinping came in, apparently they turned all that round, and they decided, well, this is really bad because these Falun Gong people are talking about God, and we can't have people believing there's a power above the CCP. So then they started ousting them, and then they turned against Falun Gong, and a lot of the Politburo that was supporting were thrown out, they were jailed, or they were murdered. So I think there's good factions and bad factions in both factions, like there is in our politics. You can't say any party is good or bad. There are bad and there are good, and there's a power struggle going on in China.
Yeah. So that's the cabal influence possibly in there, like it is in any government. You know, maybe the president who's there is kind of a good guy, because I remember him posting something recently about how, almost like identical to what Trump was saying, that after the storm, the sun will rise again. So what do you think that means? I mean, that's almost like a Q proof in some ways. You know, that's something Q would say, or something that Trump would say.
Yeah, well, I believe there's a deep state in China that are working against that president. What I find interesting is the fact that President Donald Trump has actually said he's working with the Chinese president.
Right.
He hasn't. Yeah,
and he likes him. And he says he likes the guy.
He calls it the CCP virus, but he doesn't condemn the president. So what he's done, he's left open sort of a door of cooperation between the two of them, and then you've got Putin. So if you can get the three of them all working together, that would be the opening. I've always said this: if you could get those three countries working together, that would be the opening for world peace.
Absolutely, yeah. Because they're two superpowers that just need to come together at some point, and hopefully this, looking into human trafficking and looking into the corruption behind that. You know that the cabal is behind that. If the money leads back to certain places, I am sure that we're not in this alone, that there are other countries. Q isn't just the United States military. It's everywhere around the world. Correct. Same thing with the people that follow Q. You know, this, even if Q is just this big LARP, right? It doesn't even matter, because this is what the people want, and you're raising your collective consciousness on this idea. And when you do that, I think you can manifest this to happen. I really believe that.
Right. What Q is? Okay, like you said, if Q is a complete LARP, okay, if Q is really just some kid in the basement, messing around, like, which seems totally impossible. Like he's got a time machine or something.
Yeah.
But then it's at the very least, it is a massive worldwide populist movement.
Exactly.
And that's significant enough in itself.
It really is. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to end on that note, but I'm going to show a couple of these posts that Q had alluded to for us to look at. And these are all patriots around the world who are posting their "Where we go one, where we go all." So ending on a positive note and something a little bit fun. So you have this. Okay, this is not the first one. Hold on. Let me go back here. Here we go. This is it.
Hello. We are from West Africa.
Let me make that full screen. Sorry. It's trying to go full screen. I guess it won't.
Africa. Ghana. This is the Great Awakening. The restoration of equal justice under the law will soon bring a new level of freedom and prosperity to the world. We trust the plan. Fellow patriots around the world, we are in this together. Where we go one, We go all. Where we go one. We go all. Where we go one. We go all. Hello. We are from West Africa.
I love it.
Isn't that beautiful?
I love it.
There's a few more like that, but there's let's just go through a few of them. I get excited when I see these because it proves that this is what people want, all around the world. Oops, okay.
And where we go one, we go all. I'm from Germany, and where we go one, we go all.
It keeps repeating. That's the one thing I don't like about Twitter, but let's go back to this one. Watch this. This is.
There it is. Get up there. Guys, this is in my hometown. A big Q on a billboard. Yeah! Awesome. There it is. Get up there. Guys, this is.
Isn't that crazy?
That is so cool.
You know how much a billboard costs, right? We're talking thousands of dollars there for a billboard. That's not cheap. Oops, okay. His voices.
I'm from the UK. Where we go one, we go all.
That's great, huh? And there's just so many of them here. There's the one with the little kid. It's so cute. This is great, right? Let me take that, expand it. That people are making such cool things, and showing their patriotism, and they want freedom. They want this freedom to happen. This is cool. So this is in Australia, okay? Someone rented this Jeep and put this on the Jeep. This is cute. With the American
See, this
flag.
is bringing the world together. I love it. Where we go one, we go all.
It really is. It really is. I was seriously thinking about getting a tattoo, even though if it's a lot, because still it doesn't matter. Like I said,
I was just thinking of last night too about how it totally ties in. It's like that dovetail thing again. It just ties right into the law of one. Where we go one, we go all.
Yes,
so true.
Exactly. I love it.
So this guy.
What could you even argue with about?
I know. You can't.
Freedom for everybody.
Yeah.
Common peace and understanding.
Yeah.
We're all one.
Exactly.
This is Praying Medic from Phoenix, Arizona. You are not alone. We are in this together. The entire world is watching, and the entire world is here. Where we go one, we go all.
I don't know if you know who Praying Medic is, but he's one of the he's.
I talked to him. I mean,
I
messaged him back and forth. He lives in my city.
Yeah, he's great. He has one of the best channels for following the Q posts, and yeah, he's unbelievable. Oops. Okay, it doesn't turn the sound on right away.
From Miami, Florida, where we go one, we go all.
Yeah, there's only a couple more. Then we can end it at about the 2-hour mark. She gets excited.
Australia here, where we go one, we go all.
Where we go one, we go all. That's in Australia. And then the last one is just a photo. Oh, it's no voice to it, but he's just doing his thing there. Great Awakening, QAnon, Where We Go One Worldwide. That's awesome. Yeah, and then I think that's it on those.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. That was inspiring.
Yeah,
that's a lovely way to end.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. All right, folks. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll keep doing more of these and try to bring more folks into the conversation. And there'll be one, every week, but we can do them every 2 weeks, or however we can get people to do this. But I think it was fun. I think it was a good way to share and get to know each other a little bit and get to know each other's mindset on different topics. And I think it's going to be a good platform moving forward. All right.
Okay. Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Everyone.
Love to everyone.
Bye. Love you all.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
So nice connecting with you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Where we go one, we go all.
That's right.
Right. Where we go one, we go all.
That's right. Okay. Let me see. Gotta close that. All right.